Welcome to Lab 5 DAX. DAX stands for Data Analysis Expression. DAX is a very important part in Power BI. So we will be having DAX lessons coming now and then in this tutorial. So this is part 1, which is introduction and warm up to get you ready and running quickly with DAX. So in this lesson, we will cover very important functions like filter, sum, sumx, calculate, all except, selected columns, joins, summarize, and so on. But before we start, let us first try to understand what exactly is DAX. DAX is a powerful combination of constants, operators, and functions. And by using DAX, we can go and we can create nice analytical data. So we have some data, and using that data we want to calculate average, we want to forecast, right? So basically this DAX expression actually works on the existing data and gives out more meaningful result, right? So if you see here, you can write DAX in two places. You can write DAX on a measure and you can write DAX on a column. So you can either create a measure or either you can create a calculated column. If you remember in the first lecture, I have already talked about measure and column, but let me quickly revise here. So for example, a measure is nothing but it is created on the table level, right? So it uses table level data to do analysis or to do calculations. So for example, I can go and I can create a new measure, right? So you can see I have selected fact customer. So on whichever table you want to create the measure, you need to go and select that table. So at this moment, I have selected fact customer. And I will say this is a new measure. So the time I say a new measure, you can see that it has added a column out here called as measure. And you can go and you can expand this so that you can see things more clearly. So you can see that this is your DAX coding window. This is the DAX coding window. So over here, I will say I want to go and I want to create a measure which is discount, right? Or let us say average. So average sales. So I'll say equal to, and you can see now we have some ready-made functions here. For example, average. So I can say average of the fact sales amount. So whenever this fact sales amount is referred, the total sum will be referred here. The total value will be referred here, right? So I'll just go and I will say this is done, right? So that's done out here, right? So you can see the average sales has been created. In the same way, you can go and you can also write DAX on a calculated column. So let's again select fact customer and I will say I want to create a new calculated column. Always keep this expanded because when you start writing big DAX expression, you need to really, your code can become bigger, right? So over here, I will say that we want to go and we want to create a column which is, let's say discount, right? So I will say take the fact amount, fact sales amount, and I will say give a discount of, let's say 50 rupees. So you can see now it is a combination of functions like average, count, max, and so on. It's a combination of operators like plus, minus, and it's a combination of constants, right? So this whole DAX is a combination of all these three things. So you can see now here, this is a calculated column. A calculated column applies more on a row level. So it uses the row level context. So you can see here now, for example, if you see, let's go here and let's select this discount. So if I select this discount out here, right, you can see now the calculated column works on a row level. So it takes 100 minus 50, 3000 minus 50, 900 minus 50, right? And while when we talk about the measure, it applies more on the table level. So for example, here I will say average sales. So look at it. The average sales here must be, I can make it a pie chart, right? So we can remove discount from here. It does not make sense to have a discount. So you can see average sales. Now this is more on the whole table level data, while this is more on the row level data. But whatever it is, at the end of the day, DAX expression is written either on a measure or either on a calculated column, and it is a combination of constants, it's a combination of functions and operators. If you want to clone a table, what you can do is you can click on this data tab out here and say new table, and then you can go and say, for example, let us say I want to go and clone the fact customer. So I'll say clone fact customer, and in the DAX I will just write here fact customer. So with this, what happens is, whatever is the table, it gets cloned here with a new name. Now whatever changes you make into your fact customer table, all the changes will be updated to this clone as well. So if you go and if you do some changes in the formulas, or if you do some changes in the data, right, everything will be reflected in the clone fact customer. You can see at the right hand side, this is our fact customer and this is the clone of it, right? If you want to go and say, okay, while I clone it, I want to go and filter it. I want to say that filter, so clone the fact customer, but I just want to get the data which is product ID equal to 1. So I can go and I can say here fact customer where product ID is equal to 1, right? So you can see now the cloning has happened, but it has filtered on the value 1. One of the other interesting formulas, DAX formulas, is in BI, in Power BI, is the sum x, and the average x. So you can see here that I am on the product table at this moment. So this is the product table at this moment I am on. And let us go and create a column out here. So let us say that we want to go and create a column, where we want to go and display the total sales which has been done. So I'll say sum of fact sales amount, right? And by doing so, it just displays me the amount out here, and you can see that it is always the same thing. Why? Because it is just the sum on the sales amount. Please note that the fact customer is a different table. You can see fact customer is right out here. So from there, I'm pulling out the sales amount, and I'm putting it into the dim product out here, right? So this is the sum. So sum actually works on a field. But what if I want to go and use an expression? I want to go and say here, fact sales amount plus, let's say, fact sales average sales, or I want to go and put some expression out here, 10 plus, some 10% of it, like 10 divided by 100. I can't do it. And that's where the sum x comes into picture. Sum x actually helps you to do the total on an expression. So that's what that X stands for, expression. So let us go ahead here and let us again create a new column. So you can see here I'm creating a new column, and we'll say that this is a sum X, right? Or I'll say that this is sum X, and this is profit margin, right? Right, profit margin. So the profit margin is that whatever is the sum, right? Whatever is the sum at this moment. So the profit is almost 50%, or almost 50 rupees minus of it. So I'm going to say minus 50, right? So you can see here now I can't do this, so I will say sum x, right, fact of sales amount, and then I will give the expression after this. So that's what the sum x comes into picture. So sum x, and what is the expression? The expression is sum x and table name, so fact customer, comma, and from the fact customer we want to take the sales amount and we want to minus 50 from it. So this tells me that this is the profit. So now what it will do is it will actually do the summation on this expression. So you can see that at this moment we have sales amount minus the constant. You can also go and use some other field, for example, minus the discount. Yes, that's also possible, right? So the expression can be comprising of field names and constants. So at this moment I'll just say 50 out here, and you can see now it is showing me the sum of the expression. So sum means sum only on the field value, and sum of the expression means it will take the expression and then do the summation on it. In the same way, we have average and average x as well. When you talk about DAX, there are two important technical vocabularies which needs to be understood. These two technical vocabularies are simple, but they need to be understood in a very proper way. The first one is termed as a row context, and the second one is termed as the filter context. So row context is nothing but, wherein your DAX expression goes row wise row, it goes through every row and evaluates the DAX expression. Means, for example, if you remember, we had created this discount column, right, in one of the previous video sections. And in this, we were saying that take the fact sales amount and subtract 10 from it, right? So over here now you can see that there is fact sales amount and it is minus 10. So what it will do now is it will take the first row 100 and say minus 10, and this is 90. Then it will take 3000 and minus 10 and it will take 2990, right? So basically it goes through every row and subtracts 10. So this is called as the row context. So that means that at this moment, this DAX expression has a row context. A filter context is nothing but, when you apply filters. In other words, for example, let us say that if you are on your Power BI screen and if you put a slicer, for example, if you go and if you put a simple slicer out here, so what will happen is this slicer will actually go and filter your values, right? So this is the filter context. Now filter context, can be at various levels. It can be on the UI where you put a slicer must be. It can also be in your DAX expression. For example, here probably you can have a column or a measure, where I will apply something called as filter. So filter can be inside the DAX expression, right? Or the filter context can be applied from the outside, from the UI itself, right? So there are two important things. One is the filter context and the other one is the row context. And the way the sequence works is first the filter context gets applied. So the filter context, whatever it is inside the DAX query or from the visualization component of slicer, it gets applied, and then the row context gets applied. So for example, now if you see our fact sales table, so in the fact customer table, we have the sales amount, right? So for instance, when I go and pull up this table out here, and when I say I want to see the sales amount as per the product name, it shows like this. It shows that for product, this is 900, for product 1, this is this. Now, when I apply a slicer out here, let's also select something else. Let's select country name as well, right? So now when I go and apply a slicer, so for instance, let us say I take a slicer out here, and this slicer I would apply it as per product name. So now what happens is when I go and select product 2, only product 2 data is seen, and when I say product 1, only product 1 is seen. So first your filter context gets applied, and then depending on the DAX query, the row context gets applied. Now but there are some DAX expressions which do not have any context. For example, let's take this dim product. For instance, you can see that I have this dim product out here. If you remember, just some minutes back, I have put up a sum here. Now you can see this sum is always 4,000 because this sum refers to the sales amount. So it's always 4,000. So if I go out here and if I say, okay, tell me how much is the product. So let's say I pull up the product name, and if I pull up sum, right, here it is. Right now, irrespective whatever I select, it's always 4,000. For example, you can see here, if I see all of the values, it is 4,000. My slicer really does not have any effect on the value. In other words, in this case, there is no row context. The context is directly the sum out here. It just goes and says sum of that sales amount, which is but obvious, right? But now if you want, you can go ahead and attach in context here, because remember that there is a relationship between the product table and the fact customer. So if this relationship can be applied automatically, then that would be great, right? So for that, we have the calculate function. This calculate function helps us to override any kind of filter context which is applied, right? So at this moment, this expression is not having any context, but if I just go and put a calculate out here, look at this, look at the magic. So there it is. You can see now the time I put a calculate, the calculate says, oh, first let me check, if there is any relationship between the product table and the fact table. And depending on that relationship, now you can see it is showing me the values that this is 3,100 of product 1 and there is 900 of product 2. So in other words, when you use calculate, it actually goes and overrides any kind of filter context which is applied at the top. So for example, I can also do like this. I can say here fact customer, and I will say the filter is that it's always product 1. So look at it. It's always product 1, right? Now with this, what happens is, irrespective what is the filter context, irrespective is there any relationship context, right? It will always go and use this dim product, right? So for instance, if I go to my board out here, and if I now take up this product name and if I use the sum, right? You can see now for product 2, he does not do any calculation. For product 1, he does the calculation. So you can see now it is always calculating only for product 1 and not for product 2. So this filter context here, which is applied from the outside, does not affect. So let me just revise, what I've taught here in this past 1 or 2 minutes. First thing, there is a row context wherein the DAX expression will go row by row and apply the DAX formulas. There is a filter context. Filter means, some kind of a filter which is applied from the external UI, like the slicer, or must be what is applied from the from the DAX expression. So wherever the filter is applied, there's a filter context. The third point is, first the filter context get executed and then the row context is applied. The next point is that there is a relationship. So if you use things like calculate, the relationship will get used and the context will be applied as per the relationship. You can also use calculate to override any kind of filter context you have from outside. So if you want to just make sure that this expression is not applied, it is not affected by an external filter context, you can just put calculate and then apply whatever filter context out here, and this will ensure that it will only use the calculates filter context and nothing from outside, nothing from any DAX expression. There are 2 more DAX expressions, which I really like and I use it now and then. The first one is the all and the second one is the all except, right? So let's click on this new table out here. So this all, what it does is it gets all the records from that whatever table you specify. For example, you can see here I've specified here all fact customer. It has got all the columns of the fact customer as well as the rows, right? The second, what I can do is I can say, like I just want like few columns, from this table. So I can say, okay, give me all fact customer discount and give me all fact customer, let's say, the sales ID, right? So it just gives me those 2 columns, right? So the all has 2 variations. One is that you can just put the table name, it gives you all the records. The second is you can go and you can specify the column names. It will give you all the records, but only for those columns. Also, the other nice variation of this all is an all except. Herein what you can do is you can say, okay, I want to get all the records from this fact customer, but I just want to exclude, let's say, sales ID, right? So you can see that I'm excluding sales ID. So what it will do is it will get in all the fact customer columns with all the rows, but it will exclude the sales ID. Many times we want to go and select only the necessary columns from a table. For example, you can see here I have written a very simple DAX expression which actually goes and pulls up the whole fact customer, right? But now let us say I want to just go ahead and select the sales amount and I want to select the sales date. So what I can do is I can use something called as the select columns. So I can say select columns, take the fact customer. So the first column which I want is the sales amount. So this is the text which will be displayed on the grid, and I want to select the sales amount. The second one is the date. So this is again the text which has to be displayed, the column name externally, but internal column name is sales date. So you can see now by using the select column, I have selected only 2 columns from the fact customer. One is the sales amount and the other one is the sales date. Whenever we are dealing with data, one of the very important things which we always want to perform is joins. So inner join, left join, right join, and so on, right? So now let us say I want to go and join between the fact customer table and the dim product table, right? So for that we have something called as the natural inner join, right? So by using the natural inner join, I can say here natural inner join the fact customer with the dim product. So now you can see here wherever the product ID is matching with the fact customer, it has made a join. Now how does he know that he can make a join? Why? Because there is a relationship between the product table and the fact customer. So if you want to go and fetch the matching records between 2 tables, you can use this natural inner join. There is other variation to this also called as natural left outer join. So in natural left outer join, what it will do is it will go and fetch all the records from the fact customer table, irrespective they are matching or not matching, and from the dim product he will only select those values which are matching in the table. So if I go and make an enter here, you can see at this moment it is showing me 3 records, but if I press an enter, you can see now there are 4 records, right? So you can see that he has selected all the records from the fact customer. So for example, you can see that there is a record which does not have a product ID. Even that record he has selected, and only the matching records from the dim product table has been shown out here, right? So if you want to make a left join, you can use the natural left join. If you want to make an inner join, you can use the natural join as well, right? Also we have cross join, wherein it goes and it makes some Cartesian product. So it will take every record of the fact customer table and multiply it with a dim product table. So you can see here a Cartesian product actually takes every row of one table and makes a join with the other row table. So it's like a full Cartesian product between two tables, right? So natural inner join, natural left join, and cross join. But now, what if there is no join between tables? For example, now let us say I go and I delete this relationship out here. So with this, what will happen is, my formula of joins will stop working, because if you look at the natural, let's say inner join, it was using the relationship to understand the how to make a join, right? But now if I press enter, it will give me errors out here saying that it requires at least one common join column. So the natural inner join DAX function, what it does is it says that one is that you have a relationship, he can then figure out how to make a join, or even if the column names are same, he can still figure out. But here also, if you see here, the column names are also not same. So the master table has product ID and our transaction table has product ID underscore FK. So that's why it's, this join has not happened. So for this, we need to now go and write some extra code, right? So I'm going to go and expand this whole thing out here, and we need to go and write some, I'll not say complex DAX query, but a complex DAX code out here, right? So the first thing what we will do is we need to go and we need to define a key which is common between both of them, right? So let us go ahead and declare a variable. So you can see here I'm saying where this is the fact table, right? So we had a fact table. So if you want to declare a variable inside DAX expression, you can always say var and the name of the variable, right? So I'll say over here select columns. So select columns from the fact customer, and let's give a common name to them. So what we have to do now is, in order that the natural inner join works, we need to ensure that there is a common name between the columns, right? So I'm going to go and say that so we can say PID, that is the product ID. So over here we had fact customer product ID underscore FK, right? I'll go and declare a second variable which is for the product table, right? So product table, again I will say select columns, and here also what I will do is I will go and I will keep the same column name PID. So if I have the same column name, then the natural inner join can figure out what is the relationship, right? So this again here is dim product. So dim product and dim product ID, right? So both the names are same, and now I can say here where let us make a join, right? And what is a join? The join is between, so this is a natural inner join, so it's between the fact table and between the product table, right? So you can see now I'm using variables to define to make the join, right? So definitely this is not just variables, it is actually a table with selected columns, right? I can see some errors are, it's a reserved keyword, fine. So I'll just say even this is a reserved keyword, is not natural inner join. So what happened? So let's first thing, let's make this right. So I'll just say query, right? Fact, what is fact? Problem with fact, parameter is not correct. So let's see here, this is left table, this is the right table, but I can just say this is fact query, so that I'm not sure if really these names are reserved keyword, looks like product query. Let's put those words out here. I can see that fact is a result keyword, very strange, right? And now I'll go and I'll just say here return this query, right? So if I press enter, let's see what is down below. You can see down below there is an error out here. Look at this error. Can I copy this error? So you can see I've written the query, right? But I can see that there is an error here. It says that it does not support joins by using columns with different data types or lineage, right? Now what is this lineage out here? Now what happens is, whenever DAX tracks your table, right, or tracks a column, he tracks with a name. For example, here he knows that the name is product ID underscore FK. So here he knows that it is product ID from the dim product table. So even though if you have named it as PID, still he has a reference to this. So what we need to do is we need to go and disconnect that lineage, right? Lineage, what DAX has. So what we'll do here is we'll just go and say, okay, let's go ahead and disconnect the lineage by just adding a 0 out here. So with this, what happens is now the column names, the DAX will actually assume new column names, and it will actually then assume this PID as a column name, right? So I'll just press enter out here, and now you can see the output down below. So if I just go and scroll this, so that's the output. Definitely it's not giving out, it's only giving out the IDs, right? The matching IDs. What you can also do is you can say select columns. Let's add some more columns if you want to add here. I can add here, we can add, what do we have? We have amount, right? So I can just say fact sales amount, right? Okay. So there we have the amount as well, right? It's just matter of putting those column names, right? So remember that if you have a DAX expression which is trying to make a join between two tables, who do not have a common column, then you need to go and use select columns and define a common column name and ensure that you take care of the lineage, what DAX remembers. One more very much used function in DAX is the summarize. The summarize is used to go and do group by. So for example, now let us say I want to go and fire a DAX expression wherein I want to see the product and the total sales made for that product, right? The sum. So I can say summarize, and I can say, okay, I want to summarize on fact customer. What is the group by column? My group by column is the product ID. And what is the what you call the summary or the calculation which I want to do? I want to go and display the total amount and comma the sum of fact customer sales amount, right? And there it is. So you can see now I can see the product ID and I can see the total sales made for that product. You can also see that one of the entries is showing as nothing. Why? Because it's a null data. I have kept a null values also in the product ID. But now you can see that it is not displaying me the product name, right? So now what you can do is you can mix things like natural join, add columns, select columns, and so on, right? So actually, if I want to get the product ID, then I have to first do a natural inner join or natural left join between the fact customer table and between the dim product table, right? First thing. Always indent your code, so that is natural inner join, right? And then from here, from this natural inner join, on the top of it, I will go and I will say, okay, select columns. So don't take everything, so select columns. Which one? I want to select columns, which is the first is I want to select the amount. So the amount is fact customer amount, right? From the fact customer sales amount from the fact customer table, and also we have the product name from the table here, right? So you can see this is a natural inner join. Now the output of the natural inner join is given to the select column. The select column's output will be now given to my summarize, right? So in summarize, what I will do is I will say, okay, summarize this. Okay, here it is. So I'll say summarize on what, like, so summarize on the P name. So this is the group by column, and I want to do a sum on the fact customer sales amount. You can see now parameter is not correct. Okay, and also we need to define a name out here. So the group by name. So I'll say sum per product, right, comma, so just enter. So that is, you can see the values out down below. You can see product 1 total amount, product 2 total amount, right? So remember what I've done here, it is nothing but it is chaining of the DAX expression. So first I did a natural join. The output of the natural join is given to select columns. The select columns only send out two values, amount and product name, and then the summarize column actually did the summarizing or the group by on the product name, and we also need to go and specify the calculation for the group by, right? Very simple. So that brings us to the end of this lesson. So in the next lesson we will take up other features of Power BI, but in between you will see DAX lessons coming up now and then. So that's why I've named this as part 1. And I would be adding more parts as we progress in the Power BI lessons. So as usual, we have some questions which are flashed up for revision from the revision perspective. Please try to complete the same. Thank you very much.